Thank you very much, honored guests, respected sheikhs and imams, scholars, academics, participants. Assalamu alaikum, peace be with you. First, I would like to apologize for arriving late. I had to get into an urgent briefing this morning over some of the issues that we're confronted with as we seek to maintain law and order in the Republic. I'm honored and deeply grateful to the International Peace College of South Africa for having extended this invitation to me. I must admit, I've never spoken at a Muslim gathering like this before. And the honor for this occasion and the invitation is thus ever more deeply felt. Only last month, we lost a great Muslim comrade of this country, Ahmed Kathrada, the late, or as he was affectionately known as Uncle Kathy. May his soul rest in peace. And in fact, this year, which is barely halfway through the Muslim community here in Cape Town and the greater nation of South Africa, lost two great comrades with the passing of Judge Issa Musa and Dr. Ibrahim Akuji. May their souls rest in peace. Muslim men and women have featured consistently through the progressive history of South Africa. We remember struggle stalwarts from the Muslim community, such as the late Professor Fatima Mir, the late Molvi Kachalia, the late Dala Omar, the late Imam Hassan Solomon, the late Sheikh Nazim Mohammed, the late Imam Abdallah Harun, as well as Professor Maulana Farid Isaac, Sheikh Abdul Hamid, Gabir, Imam Ali, Imam Yusuf Yuri Ahmad, and many others. Many of these Muslim scholars found them within the ranks of the Muslim Judicial Council, who had declared apartheid inconsistent with their Islamic beliefs. We remember organizations like Al-Jihad, the Muslim Youth Movement, and especially the Call of Islam, founded by Professor Isaac, Ambassador Ibrahim Rasool, and Shamil Mani. It is the call that openly aligned with the leading formation against apartheid injustice, the Congress movement in the form of the United Democratic Front. It is by no chance ceremonial reason, by virtue of me being a government representative, that I have been invited here to speak at this gathering of respected Muslim leaders, scholars, and thinkers. I draw on this rich Muslim past to make 2 points. One, the Muslim leadership and community at large have always identified with processes to place South Africa in an environment of change for the better, a better society. Two, many of these anti-apartheid activists identified themselves as Islamists. However, today the term has to an extent been tainted. So essentially, these proponents of a skewed understanding of jihad has now assumed the mantle of Islamists. I will therefore rather venture to call them jihadists in the narrow sense of the word. How did this change in definition occur? In my humble opinion, it can be ascribed to a discourse in which neutral words get negative meaning. It also speaks to a narrative that now pervades the world's interaction and understanding of what is a good Muslim and a bad Muslim. This narrative needs to be interrogated in this particular gathering. The narrative that has assumed prominence in South African society of a failed government, a dysfunctional society, a compromised legal system, and the list is endless. Likewise, needs to be examined by serious thinkers. We need to make sense of what is at play and who is to benefit in the rollback of our democracy. And in the rollback of intercultural and interreligious harmony. It is no secret that terror alerts regarding South Africa always appear when the country seems to stabilize or when there is a need to bolster a perceived or engineered crisis in the country. The topic of this symposium is ISIS in South Africa. It is about a retrogressive force, unlike Al-Qaeda, who had no real political program of establishing a territorial political state. ISIS has not only established a political state, the caliphate, it has also called on Muslims to immigrate to this land to defend it and assist in its expansion. It is an imperialist force that goes against the word and spirit of our national and constitutional ambitions of freedom, justice and equality for all, never mind the extreme barbarity it has taken pride in. It is a force that comes through diplomatically at embassy level, multilaterally. We are a United Nations member state and must respond accordingly to the treaties we are bound by. Politically, there are certainly political parties in South Africa. Our last ballot had 29 parties who have adopted not only the war on terror ethos, but also the paranoia of Islamist threat and amplifying Euro-American politics here at home. And they are free to do it. Socially, the same can also be said about media, who adopt and simply repeat Western media tropes and import the moral panics of America and Europe. Our government gets pressured by some commentators or certain civil organizations to do something about the Islamist threat. And then also by intrigue, our country engages in intelligence, domestic intelligence and foreign intelligence. All countries do this. If our country didn't do this, then our government will be doing a disservice to the people of South Africa. And much of the work around intelligence the world over happens in private. It must be so, else it won't really be intelligence or intelligent. And here is where the Ministry of State Security or the State Security Agency must engage and cooperate or not with other security agencies from any one of those Western countries embroiled in their war on terror. The pressures at diplomatic level can come through any one of our ministers when they engage with foreign partners, and not least of all our president in his interaction with foreign counterparts. And it comes to ministries like mine, when our president meets with any one of the heads of state of America, Britain, France, or Germany, and they ask him, what's South Africa doing about the war on terror? And he must be briefed by the security cluster. You will agree too that given this country's geopolitical status, as one outside the G8, our president's response can be, we will cooperate with anything you propose. We do to enlist in the war on terror. At multilateral level, the pressure can come thick and fast. Used as transit country for individual terrorists, that attempts have been made to harm Western targets in South Africa, and that attempts have not been made to use South Africa as a refuge for fugitive terrorists are all false. All of this has already happened. And here, once again, I express my appreciation for the invitation to address this symposium. All that South Africa has been spared so far has been an order to extradite an alleged terrorist for definition or prosecution in Western country, or the drone bombing of alleged terror infrastructure. Our country has certainly been affected not only by the West war on terror, but also by the manifestation of global jihadist movements, their agendas, their recruitment, and their strategic operations. This is not alarmist or conspiracy theory. It is true. And while my ministry is at the forefront of rolling out the security response to this, as well as navigating the enormous pressures from powerful states to hop to their diktats around combating terrorism, you here, esteemed participants of this symposium, are at the forefront of the very root manifestation of jihadist shenanigans in this country. You are part of the South African Muslim public. Whether you are actual influencers is for you to determine. The global jihadist terror enterprise is driven by ideology and doctrine cloaked in the theology of Islam. You are the ones at the forefront of exposing this deviant ideology and tripping up this global enterprise. The West's rapid policy over the past decade to bomb countries, to kill prominent leaders, to abduct suspects for prolonged detention, or engage in secret surveillance of mosques and imams are strategies I'm not prepared yet to evaluate or judge, except to confirm that it is far from my ministry's thinking of how to combat jihadist terrorism, meaning networks of support and cover in South Africa. And as I've pointed out, we have to think of this. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be with you. Yes, I agree that it is important that the state must not define itself aloof from what is happening, and the best form of intelligence is to be where things are happening, but at the same time, South Africa have adopted a very different approach from many other countries, precisely because of our guaranteed sovereignty in terms of our constitution. And that is why we have not fallen in line with what George W. Bush has actually plowed in the notion of, are you with or against us? We have stood on our own, and that is why we have adopted different mechanisms in fighting extremism. In certain instances, what we see in terms of the flames in the world today, it is precisely because of those erratic actions that have been taken by certain governments in the world. We've got choices. We can deal with this issue by being alarmist and exaggerate, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that we must cower and not be vigilant. But I can tell you that most definitely, the question of ISIS in as far as South African security is concerned is not a priority of the things in our bouquet that constitute priorities that we need to attack. We're faced with the problem of gangsterism, and that is the fundamental question that we are attending to. We're facing with a whole range of other challenges that are eating the social fiber of our society. We can, and we're dealing with this issue cautiously and sensitively, but we need to also understand that to undo the situation is going to take, education, but at the same time, patience. We can't take, decisions that will simply plow the country into radical extremism simply because somebody somewhere wants us to do so. And that is why I was referring in my paper to say that what does President Zuma say when he meets with his counterparts in Britain? And they pose a question, what do you do to join us in the fight against terrorism? And all of that. He doesn't say to them, no, tell me everything, I will comply. He says, no, we are fighting it in our own terms. And that is what is important. We've got our Turkish brothers here in this country who have run away from their own country because of what is happening in that country. And we will never cower to what the president of Turkey says to us that, no, these people are extremists and South Africa is harboring terrorists. We will not agree to that, to do the things that they want us to do, simply because they are failing to resolve their own issues politically in a democracy. I was when I was Minister of Sports, I went to Egypt And when I arrived there, the owner of the Egyptian club that plays with Sundowns took me aside and said, the problem with you South Africans, you are harboring the Muslim Brotherhood. That is your problem. And that is why we've got a problem with you. I said, sir, I don't know what you're talking about. It became worse when they were beaten by Sundowns. So you could see from the footage there, he didn't want to shake my hand. He was speaking in Arabic. I didn't hear what, but whether he was insulting me or what, but I said, no, I don't understand. But I'm saying that I think we need to be exposed and we need integration in our own society. And to understand religion, and this in particular Muslim religion. And that is why that integration is important, because today in the world, when you are a Muslim and I walk with you in an airport and you are African, we will be searched at people in the airport and put aside. Simply because, you are Muslim and I'm black and I'm African. We will be the most searched in America. You even get demoralized. I no longer go to those cars. I only go because I have to go, but I'm happy in Africa, I'm happy in my country. I don't want to be subjected to this dehumanization that happens to us all the time. But I'm saying that integration, understanding, the roots of the religion and understanding ourselves is going to be important. And I think in South Africa, we do have that. In Afrikaans, they call toenadering. We are very close to each other. The other day, I went to Elsie's River and I'm going back there to deliver a police station. But I was very much annoyed by the fact that how can our people be subjected to this kind of life? And we have never taken an effort since 1994 to take them out of that. Whether you are DA or ANC, we should have done something about those flats and what is going on there. Because that is a nest of gangsterism and drug distribution. And I think every time I come closer, I understand, I see how isolated we are from one another. And that is what is important that we need to address going forward and so on. In no time, this thing in itself will spiral out. Our people are captured by gangsters in their own communities. And the social, situation, upheaval that they are subjected to, generally, disengaged youth, high teenage pregnancy, high unemployed, dropout from school, hopelessness. And that's when gangsterism basically begin to flourish. And that is our challenge. Now, what are we going to do with those children who are disengaged? How do we save them from the clutches of gangsterism and thuggery? And this is what our government, working with our people, must preoccupy itself with. Now, if I'm bored, I'm living in poverty, I will respond to the call to join ISIS. And simply because I've got nothing to do. So that in itself is a time bomb that we must address. And that is a real security question that we must address. And we will not address that issue with many police stations and police on the ground. We will address it by a detailed approach that seeks to say, what do we do to address the needs of our people and save our youth in the areas where we can? So I think these are the things that we need to be alive to and seek to actually implement. And in conclusion, I said that, as we do this work with police and all of that, we must not just look at the police on boots on the ground, but we must equally look at what are the root causes of this thing and how do we undermine it going forward. Gangsterism, attraction of young people who have just given up on their life. They will be gangsters till they die. And but those who have not joined gangsters, how do we save them? And that is what is important. So to me, yes, we've got a challenge. We've got to keep the dialogue going. We've got to interact with our communities. Our approach is very clear in terms of how we deal with this situation. It doesn't mean if it is not a priority, we are not vigilant. But it means that all the time our ears are on the ground working with our people, but equally we will seek to save thousands, if not millions of our people from gravitating to extremism by implementing programs in our society that seek to undermine and which have been tabled here in a detailed research in terms of what brings about this and all of that. Thank you very much.